Yeah, hi there everybody. It's still Tuesday 22nd September 2009. It's quite late on in the evening, and I just want to do a little follow up to the previous snip that I did there. And really what I want to try and talk about is, I want to talk about, it's quite difficult this, so just bear with me please, will you? I just want to talk about how Europe views Ireland. And I can only do this through my own personal experience dealing with Europeans, and in the main I found most European countries quite interesting, and I never had any problems with them, but one or two of them I have had problem. Spain in particular, when Franco was alive, I had a major problem there, and I don't want to talk about that too much, but anyway, the other country was Germany, and some German people. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to tell you a little story very quickly. The little story concerns myself and my family, my extended family. There were 9 of us on a boat on the Shannon estuary, and we'd hired the boat. It was one of those Emerald Star boats, and this is in the year 1987. Charles J. Haughey was in power in Ireland, and it might have been 1988, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I remember Haughey had come back into power at the time, and he was running the country. Anyway, we were moored. It was a magnificent evening, and we were moored outside in a marine outside a place called Lough Key on the Shannon, and we were in this Emerald Star boat. And what happened was, it was a magnificent evening, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, came this huge boat. The biggest boat I ever seen in my life on the Shannon. It was about 60 or 70 foot long. It was white, and the thing that attracted my attention was it was flying the Kriegsmarine flag, the Nazi flag from the Second World War, belonging to the Nazi Navy, the German Navy. And there were about 7 or 8 men on board this boat, and they pulled up alongside us. They moored. And obviously, because we were there, we were together, we entered into conversation with them. Now, some of them did not speak good English, but about half of them spoke perfect English, and it transpired that these men were all officers, and they were non-commissioned officers and commissioned officers from the German Navy and the German Army. And what they did was, for 5 months out of every year, they came to the River Shannon in this boat, this huge boat, and they fished up and down the Shannon, and on the deck of the boat they had smokers where they smoked the fish. Now this was like a mini industry going on here, and all the fish were salmon, trout, pike, carp, bream, all those fish that you find on the Shannon. They smoked them all. And what happened was, they rang their contacts from Germany, who arrived over in 1 or 2 cars, Mercedes-Benz state wagons, filled them up full of smoked fish, and took them back to Germany, to the officers' messes in Germany and the naval bases in Germany, to feed the officers and at their messes. And they told us that they'd been doing this for 10 years, about 10 years, and they'd managed to buy this boat, which at the time had cost them, was the equivalent, it was $250,000 Deutschmarks, which I think was around about 80,000 or 90,000. But this was a huge boat, and they bought this boat, and they'd taken it across the North Sea and up through Limerick and up the whole locks through the Shannon. And anyway, they were obviously, they could do it because they were naval officers, and this is nothing to them. And but when I heard what was going on, I had to leave, because I got myself into quite upset, and I got myself into quite a state over the whole thing. And I thought, the flip side of the coin being, imagine how it would be that a group of paddy officers, or even just ordinary paddies, would get together and buy a boat and take it to one of the great German rivers like the Rhone or the Ruhr or the Rhine or whatever, and start going up and down it and taking out coarse fish out of it. That would last a day. That would have lasted one day. They had been doing this for 10 years. they had started initially with a hard boat and made enough money. They had an ongoing industry going, but that was not what upset me and what frustrated me so much. What upset me and frustrated me so much was that they bragged to my mother-in-law, who was on the boat with us, because I had to leave. I got so incensed I had to leave and go to bed in our boat. They bragged to my mother-in-law that when they had any trouble with any of the authorities, they opened up a big cupboard on the boat and it was full of single malt whiskies. They had hundreds of bottles, well, not hundreds, but lots and lots and lots of bottles of single malt Irish and Scotch whiskies. So they said that's how they sorted out the problems. Now they obviously gave money as well, but it's a reflection of a whole mindset, and it's a reflection of how those men viewed us as an our little country. Those men, it wasn't sort of arrogance that they had. It's that they found us benign. They found us like children. We were like, to them, innocents abroad. Like, as I say, the reverse, the flip side of the coin could not happen. It would not be possible. I have worked in Germany. I worked in Germany for a short period of time. One time in 1972, making a film. It would not be possible to do that in Germany. Just, it would not. That wouldn't be tolerated for 1 second. But we tolerated it. And because they were there, and they knew how to enter into the whole bonhomie thing and give out, if they had anybody ever raised any problems, I'd say they'd probably give them £50 or whatever, what would be a week's wages in those days, or whatever it would be, or half a week's wages, and give them a couple of bottles of whiskey and the problem be sorted. But I just thought it was a reflection of a mindset. And on top of that then later, I thought about it, and I remembered about 10 years before, I had a bookshop in Dublin, a little tiny bookshop in Dublin, in South King Street, opposite the Getty, what's now the Getty Theatre. And I remember one day a Nazi came in, a man called Major Peter Menton. Now, I didn't know that he was a Nazi, but I subsequently found out that he was. He came in with a bodyguard one day, and he had the same, he was dripping with the blood of Polish Jews, that he'd murdered thousands of Polish Jews that he'd murdered. Now, as I say, I didn't know that at the time, but I found out later. And he had the same sort of attitude, the same sort of, it was as if it was an intellectual arrogance. It wasn't like a bravado arrogance. It was like an intellectual arrogance that we were almost like dogs or like pets. We were like pets. And that is the sense that I got from him. It was like a benign sort of sense. Anyway, the bottom line about it is, we're being asked now, our government has got our country into major problems, either by design or by mistakes. It doesn't matter. We're in it. They're brown-nosing Europeans to get us out of it. They think that'll get us out of it. Europeans probably in the short term will do something to ameliorate the situation that we're in. But long term, this is not the situation. We are 4 million out of 492 million. We're less than 1% of the European populace at large. The great nations of Europe, which are Germany, Spain and France, they do things for their countries, for themselves. The consideration for Ireland in the short term, until they get this Lisbon Treaty through, will be A-OK, but in the medium to long term, they will squat us like flies.